Silence had stopped being emptiness for me. It had become my sharpest blade, my most precise tool. Each day, I carved away at their certainties with it. It was invisible, but it left wounds deeper than steel ever could. By the time the first cold winds of autumn swept through the city, the web was nearly complete. They did not see it, but I could feel the threads vibrating, tight and ready. All it would take was one more pull for everything to collapse. Daniel was the first to stumble. His power had always rested on performance, the flawless image of a man who knew what he wanted and how to get it. But that kind of image is fragile. It only takes one crooked frame to make the entire painting fall from the wall. I gave the frame a little push. It began with numbers. In his office, buried among hundreds of reports, one file had a single digit transposed. The mistake wasn't mine, it was his. All I did was make sure the right pair of eyes found it. His assistant noticed it first. Then a junior auditor. By the time it reached a senior partner, that single mistake looked like part of a larger pattern. And in the world Daniel lived in, perception was reality. The next board meeting was the stage for his first public crack. I wasn't in the room, but I didn't need to be. A contact had recorded a snippet on her phone, Daniel, red-faced, cutting off a colleague, insisting that he had it under control. But control was the one thing he didn't have anymore. That video spread quietly among his peers, each share a nail in the coffin of his confidence. Later that night, I watched him from across the street as he left the office. His steps were uneven, his tie crooked, his hands trembling as he fumbled for his car keys. He stood there for nearly a minute, staring at nothing, before slamming the car door shut. This was not the Daniel I had once known, the one who laughed loudly, who thrived on attention. This was a man being hollowed out from the inside. Emily, on the other hand, withered in silence. She didn't break in public. She broke in private. The first signs were subtle, a pause before a smile, hesitation before answering a question. Then the changes grew larger. She stopped accepting invitations to dinner. She ignored calls from friends who once lit up her evenings. At night, she stayed awake longer than Daniel. Her phone glowing faintly in her hand, her expression tight. I had given her only shadows, but shadows were enough. One morning, she found a folded slip of paper on the driver's seat of her car. "You are safer than you think," it read in careful handwriting. Not a threat, not a warning, only ambiguity. But ambiguity is poison when planted in guilty soil. She checked the locks twice that night. Then 3 times. By the end of the week, she had installed new security cameras around their house. The walls of her life, once open and comfortable, began to close in around her. Together, they tried to fight it. Daniel became obsessive, micromanaging his staff, combing through reports line by line, showing up earlier than everyone else, leaving later. His hunger for control only made him look desperate. His colleagues noticed. They whispered. Emily tried to patch him up, but her touch had lost its warmth. Their late-night talks were no longer soft confessions but tense negotiations, who would apologize first, who would pretend not to notice the distance between them. I watched them once at a small restaurant downtown. They didn't see me, of course. I had chosen a corner table in the shadows. Daniel leaned forward, speaking too loudly, his hands slamming the table as he tried to prove a point. Emily sat across from him, her face blank. Her eyes wandering to the door more than once. They left separately. That told me everything I needed to know. Still, I wasn't finished. The rumors I had set into motion about Daniel's financial integrity were beginning to grow teeth. An internal review had started. The questions weren't loud yet, but they were steady, persistent. Every new inquiry pulled another thread from his carefully woven image of success. For Emily, I chose a different approach. I didn't need to ruin her reputation outright, I only had to make her believe it was slipping away. A friend of hers, someone she trusted, received an anonymous message suggesting Emily's loyalty was not to Daniel, but to the wealth his name carried. The friend never confronted her directly, but Emily must have noticed the hesitation in her voice, the way invitations stopped coming, the way her social circles slowly shrank. Isolation is a quiet execution. There were nights when I almost faltered. I remembered Daniel's laughter echoing against the stars on a rooftop when we were young, and I wondered how betrayal could grow from a bond like that. I remembered Emily's kindness, her gentle way of knowing what I needed before I spoke it. Those memories clawed at me, begging me to stop. But then I remembered the betrayal. The stolen love. The nights I spent alone, unraveling in silence while they thrived in their stolen joy. And I pressed forward. One evening in late October, I sat in my car outside a cafe. Rain streaked down the windshield, blurring the glass, but not enough to hide her face. Emily sat inside alone, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup, her eyes staring into the dark liquid as if searching for answers there. She looked fragile, younger than I remembered. Almost untouched by guilt for a brief second. A strange tenderness welled up inside me, not for what she had done, but for who she had once been. For a moment, I pitied her. Then I crushed the pity. Pity was weakness. Weakness had no place in my plan. The web was ready. The trap was closing. And when silence finally broke, it would not whisper. It would roar. There comes a moment when a structure looks intact from the outside, but inside it is already broken. The fracture begins invisible, then spreads like frost across glass. That was where Daniel and Emily now lived. Inside a life that was already splintering. And I was the one holding the hammer. Daniel's kingdom began to collapse in the same place it had been built, the office. For years he had been untouchable. There, the man others measured themselves against. But ambition attracts vultures, and once blood was in the air, those who had smiled at him yesterday sharpened their knives today. The audit grew teeth. What had started as a small inconsistency was now presented as a pattern of negligence. Daniel tried to explain, to argue, but his voice no longer carried authority. Each word sounded defensive, each denial another stone dragging him down. At a late-night meeting, one of his rivals, a man Daniel had once humiliated in front of the board, asked a single question. That silenced the room. Daniel, if there's nothing to hide, why does every answer sound like a cover? No one laughed. No one defended him. They simply wrote notes, eyes lowered, as if watching a man drown. I didn't need to be in that room to feel his panic. It rippled outward, spilling into late emails, abrupt phone calls, and angry outbursts at subordinates. Once he had ruled by confidence. Now he ruled by fear. But fear is brittle. Fear breaks. Emily's prison was quieter. She had always thrived in circles of laughter and trust, the kind of person who made others feel lighter simply by being near. Now, that light was dim. Invitations slowed, then stopped. Friends turned into polite acquaintances, their smiles laced with doubt. She noticed, of course. One evening, I watched her on the balcony of their apartment, phone pressed to her ear. The conversation was short. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the way her shoulders fell when the call ended. The phone slipped from her hand, dangling by her side, forgotten. Later, she went inside and drew the curtains tight, as if the city outside had betrayed her too. The note I had left for her still lingered in her mind. I could see it in her eyes whenever she glanced over her shoulder. She lived among shadows now, shadows I had carefully placed. And me? I was patient. Every hunter knows there is a difference between wounding and killing. A wound weakens the prey. It slows them, disorients them, forces them into mistakes. Only when the prey staggers, exhausted and blind, does the final strike matter. I was close. I began laying the foundation for that strike. Documents were being prepared. Bank transfers traced. Conversations recorded. A single folder, thick with evidence, was already taking shape on my desk, waiting for the moment it would be opened in the right hands. But this was not just about proof. Proof alone could destroy them publicly, yes. But I wanted more than destruction, I wanted ruin. I wanted them to feel the silence, the weight of betrayal echoing in every room of their lives, long after the evidence had done its work. One night, I saw them together. Daniel had dragged Emily to a charity gala, desperate to show the world he was still untarnished. He wore his best suit, but it hung on him like borrowed armor. Emily's smile was thin, her hand stiff in his. I watched from the crowd as they posed for photographs. Flashbulbs lit their faces, but the truth showed in the small details, the way Daniel's jaw clenched, the way Emily's eyes slid past him as if searching for an exit. They were no longer a couple. They were actors in a play neither believed in. And the audience was beginning to notice. Driving home that night, I thought of glass again. A window looks solid. Until the crack runs from one corner to the other. Then the pressure of a fingertip is enough to shatter it completely. Daniel and Emily were full of cracks now. And I was ready to press my finger to the glass.